Done a little acting. Yeah, I've worked. Most recent was 911. You know, it's on ABC. I should know this. I'm so sorry. ABC. Let me be a better person. 911 on ABC. Yeah, I did a couple episodes opposite Angela Bassett, who we all know and love. You know, the Queen of Wakanda. I worked on Criminal Minds. I worked on True Blood. I worked on a little show on CW called Husbands, and then you know, other things here and there throughout my time in LA. And I'm a writer and a painter.
Oh, nice. You're what we call a Renaissance man.
I guess so. I just was trying to express all the pain and turmoil inside my body and put it on the canvas or on the page or on the stage. Oh, I rhymed. You. Didn't mean to rhyme.
Yeah, and you're a poet. And you didn't have any idea.
All started here, right here.
Well, I work in theater a little bit.
Do you?
And, well, I bartend at shows. But I used to build the sets and stuff. So I did work more with the actors and stuff. But then COVID hit. And then my life went elsewhere. So that I was like, I came back and I was like, I'll bartend. But it's a small theater, so you're kind of involved.
I mean, do you get to actually watch the shows?
Oh yeah.
Oh, okay, all right. Yeah.
Well, it's called the Globe Theater, and it's in the round, so it's like
as the actual Globe, and great. That's cool. Yeah. I mean, I assume then they at least do one Shakespearean piece a year.
Nope.
If not.
When they first opened, I think they did, but no.
Interesting. I mean, you can't be called the Globe and in the round and not do at least one a year. That's funny.
Yeah. Actually, our next show was Bring It On. So
the musical.
That's right.
Hilarious. Actually, that's fun. That's a fun show.
It is. Yeah, I'm looking forward to that one. How long have you been in LA?
Oh, I know I don't look it, but I've been in LA for 18 years. Nope, that's a lie. This winter will be 20 years. Just as long as I've been sober, actually.
Ah.
Yeah.
And is that kind of when life started getting better? I mean, I'm assuming yes. Maybe that's a terrible question, but like your story in the book that you're coming out with and stuff, is it pre 20 years ago, mostly?
Yeah, and you're referencing being the gay Mormon drug dealing narc for the federal government.
Wait, what? I have the wrong interview. This is awkward.
Wait, what? No, what's going on? What? What's happening right now? Yes, you know, when sobriety finally smacked me in the face, I went to rehab, and then I did an outpatient program at Whitman Walker Clinic in Washington, D.C. And I had the best counselor there. And he was like, listen, you didn't get sober just to sit around. What do you want to do? And I was like, I want to act. He's like, great. You got to go to L.A. And I was like, okay. And
good luck staying sober.
Well, actually, I had never used in L.A., so it was really nice to actually come to a city that I don't have any using memories. And also, I did not know that at the time that L.A., as it turns out, has some of the best recovery in the world. So I was absolutely meant to be here. I mean, because of the pandemic, there's a lot of 12-step and other recovery outlets online. And so people are really getting a taste of the recovery here. But yeah, no, life got better. Life, cool. Yeah. Got dark and lonely, but I was able to grieve and feel my way through the pre 20 years, everything that I went through there.
Right. I don't know if you know, but I'm in recovery as well.
Oh, good.
A little over 8 years.
Yeah.
That's kind of why I got into this too, was, you know, my own stuff. And then you get tired of telling your own stories. So then you want to hear other people's stories. But, and oddly enough, I've already interviewed a gay Mormon.
Really?
One of my good friends from theater. I mean, he's not Mormon. He was raised Mormon.
Yeah. Well, yes, same. Of course. I mean, look, if you're a gay Mormon practicing Mormon today, more power to you. It just does. It doesn't. They accept you, but they don't accept your lifestyle. So I can't get past that.
Right. Yeah. So growing up, I guess, when did you know you were gay?
I'm curious. Your friend.
I'm gay.
I'm a homosexual. Wait, so your friend, your gay Mormon actor friend, was his story just about reconciling his sexuality with his religion and leaving the church and stuff like that? Okay.
Yeah.
Because I'm sure his reaction did not end up being a drug dealing narc for the federal government. I don't think so.
Not yet.
Not yet. Oh, he's young. Okay, good. Okay, cool. There's still time.
30 something.
Okay. Hey, you know what? There's, I don't know if addiction's part of his story, but there's still time.
Not yet.
Well, okay. Well, when in his interview, I'm sure you heard, there's some hot button issues around, obviously being gay. I just have to say gay Mormon, and people just, even if they don't know much about the Mormons, they just get it. It's just like, oh yeah. No, but I grew up in Northern Virginia, like I said, and I have 6 other siblings, so there's 7 of us. And my mother really thought she was trying to save our souls by really pushing us to go to the church. And my father was very not Mormon, which was not good in the Mormon church, but my mother was desperate when she met him. And he was very busy trying to raise the finances to support 7 kids, which, as you can imagine, is insane amount of money. And, so he was never around. And this little gay boy was very open emotionally. So I became like my mother's companion, if you will. And so that's what really, I believed in the Mormon church, but it was really fueled by this need for validation from my mother to like win out her affection over my siblings. And so my belief in the Mormon faith was compounded by my mother's need and her validation and attention. So when I was 13 and I realized, I kind of like this guy over here. And then, 2 things happened. One, I realized, I must have done something so horrific to God, believing in the Mormon God, that he cursed me with this disease of gayness. But even worse than that, my mother's never going to love me, and I should just end my life now. And so at 13, I was like, I should just die. I should just die. Which set me up for when I first had, my eldest brother. Before he became like a really good Mormon, he's not now, but he like went to BYU, which is in Salt Lake City, Utah. For Canadian listeners, it's like the Mormon college. Maybe you know that. Maybe everybody knows that. Where he went on his missions. He became the good Mormon. But before that, he got the brother below him drunk for the first time. That brother got that brother drunk for the first time. And that brother got me drunk for the first time. And what a relief that was. It was like I didn't have my existential angst and torment. And I was like, why can't I feel like this all the time? And those are...
How old were you then? Your first drunk?
14.
Okay.
14, my first drunk. And I got away with it. Same day, went home. My mother, very naive, ignorant to the whole thing, just was like, okay, cool. So I can do this thing, which makes me feel better, and hide it. Great. We're doing this thing. That provided relief, but I was still trying to be a good Mormon, so it actually provided more shame. And then the thing that really actually saved my life was in 8th grade, I spotted a young man from afar, and I was like, what is this feeling I have for this young man? And lo and behold, we connected deeply by 9th grade, and the love I had for him saved my life, because it was what I felt, it was like, this feels so right, so how could this be so wrong, was the thing I was carrying. So I left the church around 9th, 10th grade. I still tried. I was still living with a whole lot of shame. But this person became, I was football captain, homecoming court, total cliche, the whole time doing my best friend all 4 years. We were like Romeo and Romeo, like in the secrets of like high school, like in the corners. And it was tragic and romantic and tragic and romantic.
So he had the same feelings for you.
Oh, easy. Oh my gosh. Yeah, no, we absolutely loved each other. But as teenagers go, we just definitely did not have the emotional intelligence or the mental capacities to contain that kind of love for each other. But I needed to feel that, because it kept me alive. Truly. It really was like, it helped me defy what I believed the Mormon God was. But I was also living with an immense amount of shame because I was never going to get my mother's acceptance. So everything was hidden from her. But so by the time I graduated from high school, I mean, I was already blacking out with drinking because my tolerance skyrocketed. The emotional connection between he and I was deteriorating because we just didn't have the capacity to handle it. So everything was just falling apart. And when I went to college at 19, I started sort of coming out to people, never my parents, but one of the guys I came out to, that guy left me for him, or we were falling apart. I was a shithead. Can I curse? Am I cursing?
I wish you would.
Oh, good. So
makes it more colorful.
Oh no, okay, good. I don't have to hold back. So he look at me. I'm getting relaxed now.
Okay.
So he left me for this other person, and like, you know, if I went from the Mormon God to basically this young man as my God, because I went from one save to the next save. When I lost him, I felt like I lost my entire world. So I had a very dramatic. I'm mocking it, but it's true. Very dramatic, like episode of, you know, cutting parts of my body, eventually my wrists, and my mother found me. And it wasn't like a planned, you know, people who really, you know, I've unfortunately, being in recovery, as you know, I've been around people who have later committed suicide, and there's a difference. You know, they plan it. You can retrace the steps of when they said goodbye to you. You knew they planned it for 2 weeks. It's a whole thing. Right. I was not doing that. I was seriously trying to feel something other than the pain inside. So I was cutting myself to feel some physical pain, which did provide relief. But then one night it just got out of hand and I was bleeding out, and my mother found me, and this was my outing. Surprise. It's like your son's committing suicide one night, and the next day it's like, hey, I'm gay.
I may as well tell you now, I guess.
You know, I mean, it was a cry for help. I mean, I had no, right. I had no other out. I had nothing. I had absolutely nothing. And, you know, God bless her. You know, this is like, what, 2001. So like, you know, the Mormons definitely don't like the gays in the 90s. They haven't shifted their views like they have today, which hasn't been much, but you know, the society, she just was naive and ignorant. So the very first thing she asked me was, do you have AIDS? And I was like, no. I got so angry. I was like, what? And then she started crying because she wouldn't have grandkids. And then I was like, okay, all right, I'm done.
Oh, it's about you now.
Yeah. And then she did the very classic, like, you know, well, we love you and accept you, but not the lifestyle, which is, you know, code for sex with other men.
Right. My other friend that I had, this was like 4 years ago, so it's not like this interview I did with my gay Mormon friend was like last week or something. But anyway, he was like, my mom said, why would you do this to us? I found that hilarious. I was like, I'm going to do this to my mom. I'm going to fall in love with a man. Ha ha. Got you, Mom.
That says so exactly. And that says so much. That says, like, you know, why would you choose this? Why would you punish us this way by choosing to act this way?
Yeah.
It says so. Oh, it's so funny. It's another way of saying exactly what my mother said.
Right.
You know?
Yeah. That's so dated. That gauche. Gauche.
Yeah, gauche is like so gauche.
Sorry. So did she, like, you used the word disease to describe homosexuality earlier? Is that what she kind of considered it?
That's what I mean, okay, so yeah, well, the Mormons, you know, called it a cancer. You know, they encouraged harsh earlier on. They've shifted to the point of like, yes, we accept you, but secretly not really. But like you can say you're gay in the Mormon church,
but don't give us details.
Yeah, you may not get married in the temple. Like, don't give us details because it's just like you don't get the full. You know, in order to have the full endowment in the temple. In other words, in order to, like, you know, get your planet after you die because you're a male. You do have to be married to a woman, and so they kind of help you work through that if you can make that work. But
so it's like, hey, you're allowed to hang out, but you're not going to be.
Well, they treat it like
tier.
Yeah, but they treat it like it is a disease and like an addiction, like the disease of addiction. They treat it like, you know, it's something that can be changed.
Right.
You know, It's something that essentially you might be powerless over, but we can change it with enough prayer and enough faith. And, so that's what they,
sorry, do they still have like conversion therapy and stuff in Mormon?
Not the kind of electroshock therapy like they used to, which was the most brutal form of that. I had a friend who went through that, and they don't do that per se anymore, but they do this version of. It's the same thing. It's shaming you into it.
Right.
I mean, shame is how people control people anyway. It's a man-made
it's a cancer.
That's the true cancer. But they would call homosexuality comparable to like bestiality or murdering somebody, and it's just a cancer. You got to be tough against it.
Gotcha. Okay.
And my mother was just very, very naive. It was filth to her. It was disgusting, and that was the messaging I got. So I was dirty like a disease, or cursed with it. Again, I didn't understand. Well, first I thought I was failing God. I thought I was weak. Like, why would I be choosing this thing? In fact, later in high school, when I tried to accept it more about myself, my defense was always, and you probably heard this before, my defense was always like, why would I choose this? As if to say, like, why would I choose the way society treats me or looks down upon me? Why would I choose that? What am I going for? That was always my defense, and it was effective, but it's still like, why would you? It's still not it's not the best way to live that kind of, because it still is a rejection of myself.
Right.
So I just believed it was some kind of curse. I couldn't, and I was weak to change it. So that's where the disease of it came in.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
Okay. So then you came out and you lived happily ever after.
So yes. So happily ever after. Are we going full drug story? Are we going full drug story? Oh, we're going
Can
full.
we?
Oh my God. Yeah. Okay. How much time we got? Okay, let's go.
How much time you got?
We're good.
You've like the hook is in my mouth. You're setting it.
All right. Let me stretch it out. Let me get it. All right. We're going full drug story. All right. Here we go.
Yes.
All right. We're gonna. So yes. Okay. Right. Even at 19, coming out to my mother, and the very first thing she says, "Do you have AIDS?" Like, I knew that was wrong even then. Like, I already felt unjust. Like, why would I have these parents? I already felt like, fuck you guys. I already felt like, fuck you, Mormon God. I'm going to prove you all that I can live my life. But more than that, I'm going to punish you, Mom, Dad, God. And I'm going to punish you by punishing myself. So I
take that.
Seriously, I went like full tilt. But before that really went like full rebel, there was 2021, I like completely just shut down and dated this guy who was up in New York, and like, he was an only child and his mother loved him just as he was. And I was so enamored by this. I pretended I was this woman's son. It was a whole thing, this whole illusion of things that I was like living in. And, but when that ended, like 2 years later, it was another breakup. And I was like, I wouldn't survive this. So I had already been experimenting in the DC clubs with party drugs, with ecstasy, with whoever, cocaine. I did methamphetamines once, and I liked it so much that I was like, need to stay away from that one. And then, I hadn't tried ketamine yet, but that eventually becomes a big part of my story. And then there's a big one called GHB, big in the the gay scene. It's gamma hydrobutyrate. It's it's almost like a date rape drug, because doing too much, you fall unconscious. It makes you feel like you've had a 6-pack of beer or something. But so when that second relationship ended, I was in theater school in Richmond, Virginia, which was 90 miles south of DC. And again, to sort of like save my life, because I didn't trust myself, single and depressed, and suicidal ideations were always hovering around. A friend and I would just start going up to DC every weekend and being up there for like 2 days straight, like being up for 2 days, really to go dance and liberate myself. That's what I started doing more meth just on the weekends. Honestly, really, because like I could dance for like 6-8 hours, and it was like, that's what drew me. It was exhilarating. It was like, be free, like really claim my sexuality and just be this sexy, tall, little skinny boy on top of a box and just being like, get my groove on and stuff. And that's
like
what
one of those car
Totally,
inflatable
exactly.
car.
And that's what I really looked like. In my head, I was like J-Lo or something like, something like some diva, but really I looked like one of those car things, like,
flapping around.
yeah. And that was fine. That was effective. I'm 22. I'm invincible because I have, people at 22 think they're immortal. I don't think any consequences are going to happen. I think I'm fine. And I am fine. Like, we spend the summers doing the same thing, and it's like, cool. This is when you experiment. This is when you do these things. Yes, I'm doing meth, but like, I'm not telling people because, it's a little scary, but I'm doing that on the weekends and I'm having the time of my life. Everything.
I like to say you were socially doing meth, which is
yes,
funny, in a way. It's like,
so
no, I'm a social drinker. I'm a social meth user.
Well, it's funny. It's like, I my first time going to the DC clubs, I was like, with the fake ID at 19, 20. And I was I would go to the clubs and get plastered. Like all the older men would buy me drinks, or I'd get and then I'd get like free cocaine. And that was my routine for a couple of years. But when I moved on to meth and GHB, like all my alcoholic friends would look down at me. And I was like,
isn't that funny?
And they can barely stand up straight. And I'm like perfectly like coherent and still. And I'm just shaming them because they're like falling on the dance floor. I'm like, okay, who's messier now? And it was so funny. It's so funny. At that time too, I remember commenting to a friend that like, I haven't had any alcohol this whole month. Like I was so proud of it.
It's like the kettle calling the pot calling the kettle black. Is that right?
Back and forth, either one.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. It's two people in glass houses throwing stones.
Exactly right. But I was so proud of that fact. I was like, this is so funny. Eventually, so I'm in theater school. I'm doing plays. I'm feeling like, I'm not taking acting seriously enough as a profession. I'm just taking it as like, this is fun to do. And, but on one of those trips, I am in an after hours, and in walks this drug dealer, and I was like, it was like the seas parted, the second coming of Jesus had arrived, and I was like, who is this? And like the amount of reverence people at the party gave him, and I was just so fascinated, and he immediately took a liking to me. And
Was he the owner of the club?
No, he was just
okay.
No, I'm sorry. Let me emphasize. So we go to the club, which was 10 to 4 a.m. And then there was an after hours club that would be open from like 4 a.m. to like noon. And then we'd go to an after hours, which was like
a restaurant.
No eating.
Oh, I see. Okay.
It would be somebody's home or an apartment, that kind of thing. So this was an after hours. Actually, I do remember it being at like a home in Northern Virginia, and it was odd. There was no furniture. It was a big house, but there's no furniture in it. I just remember that being really weird. Anyway, that's irrelevant. Right. But in this house at this after hours walks this person and like makes all these deals, and he immediately takes a liking to me. And the intrigue in growing up with the Mormon church, you have this worldview that the devil is everywhere and you're living in fear all the time. Like Christians, I get it. You guys literally see the devil and sin everywhere. You live with constant fear. It's a terrible way to live. I'm so sorry for those people. I feel bad for them, but I remember thinking that. And then as I woke up to how the world was, I was like, that's not how it works. And then when I saw this drug dealer and I was so enamored and curious in the glamour about all of that, I was like, oh no, that's actually how the world really works. Everybody up here in society, y'all are just pretending. Let me get down on this level and see what this is like. He took a liking to me and, invited me along on this little adventure. And so I spent,
as a couple, you mean?
We did eventually start dating, but that night that I met him, the next thing we're doing all these runs, I'm just thinking it's the coolest thing in the world. And when I say it's like the real underbelly, it's like, the clients were like this high-powered DC lawyer, this campaign finance manager, this former pop star. And I was like, yeah, everybody, this is how the world, and it was so fascinating. It was so thrilling, more than my pain, more than my angst. And that night I saw like a hotel bed filled with drugs, the most drugs I've ever seen in my life. I was like, this is so cool. And I think I can still get out. Like, I don't think any of this applies to me because I'm 22. I'm like, whatever, I'm going to do this. Sure, I'll date him. Sure, let's date. But I can always end this and move on with my life. I never think what's about to happen is going to happen. Which is so funny what we tell ourselves, especially with addictions.
Oh God.
Because let me tell you, like, it did not, I made the rule that, I'd only party on the weekends, but it did not take long for that rule to be broken. And, I needed some to, drive back to my classes Monday morning. And then eventually, like, he'd run out, and waiting for him to re-up with more, it crept into Tuesday, Wednesday, and I started missing more classes. And I had my director literally say to me, because I was working on a play and I was missing rehearsals and everything, literally say, like, you're never going to work in this town again, kid. Like, literally, like, so consequences were beginning, but I was like making up excuses already. And so what happened was, how I ended up started dealing was, I didn't want to admit it. He wasn't keeping up with my addiction. Sure. But that wasn't my conscious thought. That was like me observing myself then. Like, that was clearly what was happening. But he loved ketamine. He loved Xanax. He loved things that made him chill. But he was an addict. And when I say addict in this world, I mean the baseline is always meth. They're usually up for 3 or 4 days and then they're down. But he, on top of that, liked ketamine and would always fall into, like, people have heard of K-holes, which is, those people you see in the corner at the club who can't really move. But addicts would, they would do that at home or all the time. And so anyway, one night, his clients were freaking out because he was supposed to deliver all these drugs, and he's in a K-hole. So I decided to, like, take it and go to make all these deliveries. Like, look, I'm going to make you this money. And also I was, like, low key curious to see what it felt like to deal drugs. And I was like, cool, I can do it for one night and that kind of stuff. But when I returned, and I felt the thrill of it, I was like, yeah, I'm a badass, cue the rock music and stuff. But when I returned to him, he was already throwing the phone at me and the coffee machine, like, freaking out. Like, I knew it. You're trying to steal my business, like paranoid tweaker level. And it got so heated and violent that, like, my rebel rage, resentment kicked in. I was like, you don't think I could, because he was, like, laughing at me thinking I could do this. And I was like, you don't think I can do it? I'm going to steal all your clients and prove you wrong. And I'm going to go to school and do it at the same time. Resentment was my fuel up to that point in my entire life. And so whenever that was triggered, it was like, it was hard to get off that train.
You did it out of spite.
So it's still convinced, still feeling immortal, like these consequences won't happen to me. And, like a month into doing this new thing, still trying to go to school back and forth to DC, I fell asleep at the wheel and drove under a Mack truck.
Yay.
And that was like my first big consequence. And even that didn't, no. And because of that, I couldn't turn in a final. So I started failing some classes. And because of that, I decided not to go back my spring semester. Those were not consequences enough that, like, registered. I was still fueled in, proving this stupid drug dealer boyfriend wrong. But, at the same time, I passionately was, like, really in love with acting. And so the fact that I was sort of not doing that was pulling on me because, it was a joy of my life. I also saw the way my mom looked at, actresses at watching the Oscars, the way she looked at them. I was like, maybe I can get my mom on the red carpet. Or my dad and I, the thing we would bond over the most, he and I would sneak away to the rated R movies. And, the way he looked at the screen at, like, Arnold Schwarzenegger or Tom Hanks or something, I was like, oh my God, I want my dad to look at me that way. So I was always driven by that. And so what had happened was this ex-boyfriend tried to stop me in every way that he could, which just fueled me on. And then I was like, the weekend where I stole all of his clients, I made all this money. I was like, I did it. I win. And now I'm getting out. Okay. I'm going to leave DC. I need to stay away for a long time, go back to, like, community college, then back to school. That was the plan. I win. I'm going to go rub it in his face. And then victoriously, I fall asleep in the car in the alleyway next to where he was staying. And then I wake up like 5 hours later with a tap, tap, tap. And I look up. This is like February DC, so it's freezing. There's a police officer. And I'm like, oh, fuck. So I was arrested. I did not know my license was suspended due to that accident, and I did not show up to court for that. So they had every right to search me. And it was a very disorienting experience, coming down, being hauled away, being put in front of the judge, being released, having a court-appointed lawyer, and then just sort of shoved back out. And I was the lawyer was this heart of gold Dennis Braddock guy who was like, pretty much saying like, it's DC. So what happens in DC is charges are automatically federal. They're not state. They're not like misdemeanor. They're automatically federal. So they're automatically. I had possession with intent to distribute. I had a large amount of drugs with me, and Braddock was like, yeah, I could fight for like 3 years, minimum or at most or whatever. And I was still like 3 years, like that was a kick in the face. Like, oh my God, like pit in my stomach. This was a consequence. This was a wake up call. Mm-hmm. And I was pissed off at myself because I was just about to get out. I was on my way out. And then I had a mandatory debrief with 2 federal agents. And they, in so many words, what's so funny about these guys is they were like undercover because they looked like, I described them in my book. One of them looked exactly like Will Ferrell. And then the other one looked like a bassist from a 90s rocker band, like with a full like red Fu Manchu. Like, I think I described him as like Fieldy is he from Rage Against the Machine? But just imagine like, Nick Carter.
The guy from Anthrax.
Yes. Oh, yes. And they look like roadies, like that would just, go set up stages and stuff. It was like, wait, what? Anyway, these guys in so many words, without trying to, say it directly, were saying I had to keep dealing in order to, sign this informant agreement. And they threatened me with 10 plus years. They said they had enough swing to do that, which at the time, I don't know how accurate that was legally, but at the time right. I absolutely believed that these guys owned me. So I agreed to the informant agreement. But I was like, but the thing is though, nobody's going to deal with me. They're all going to know I was arrested and be paranoid. And they were like, well, you got to keep doing what you're doing, dealing. And then I was like, yeah, but like, I have to do it more than I ever had before because I need access to like, not just dealers like my ex, but the suppliers in order to get them information. And they were like, exactly right.
Your problem. Oh boy.
So there I go. Wire. So I have a ticking clock of 6 months. Because that was the end of February, and it would be 3 months till I have another hearing, and then they tell me that August 11th will be my sentencing. So I don't really fully know how much time I have, but 6 months. And March, April, May, June, July, 5 months. And, I'm freaking out because it's like, okay, I've seen enough movies. I don't want to be a rat. I don't want to live with that guilt or shame. It's just like, it's just not what you do. My family knows everything that's happening now. And they're just like, why don't you just rat on somebody? Like, they don't get it. Or they're actually making fun of me. They're like, what is there, like a gay mafia? Like, do y'all have matching pink guns? And that,
oh my God,
that just made me even angrier. Like, I was like, fuck you. I was like, fuck you guys. I'm going to be the biggest drug dealer the city's ever seen. And I felt invincible too, because like I had the law behind me now. And so the plan was to like, the city was paranoid to deal with me, but they would be dry, which means they'd get desperate. And so I would be ready for that. And so I started traveling to cities. I went to New York first, but then I traveled to other cities that were closer to the Mexican border because the meth was cheaper, because where the cartels would bring it up. And I met this supplier, Steven in Atlanta, Georgia. And the meth was closer to the Mexican border. And he told me he was one person away from the cartels. So the cartels would give to this one person and that person would. And Steven was essentially a big supplier. And I kind of thought about maybe I should turn him in. But then it crossed my mind of like, at that time it's like revealing the cartels chopping people's heads off. And so I was like, maybe not. Well, no, maybe I could turn in Steven, but maybe that'll get him in trouble. Maybe I should turn in his supplier, but then that would really get him in trouble. But he was providing me with what happened, he was providing me with the meth, and to get back up to DC, I started trafficking through the airports. And, feeling powerless for most of my life, I was perfect for meth because it makes you feel like the president, Superman, and a porn star all in one. And now on top of that, to be the king of the tweakers. and not just like, cult leader, more than cult leader, people groveling with cult, like I had access to literally controlling their lives because they were so dependent upon the meth and how that made them feel that they were dependent on my whims. But I vowed to never be like these other dealers who were assholes and would make you wait or do some stupid shit. I was going to be nice about it, but I thrived on being like the king of it all. And so, I had the agents in my phone as yes and no. Literally, that's what they were. I don't know why. I in my book, I'm like, I think yes, like I should narc. No, don't narc. Like, I don't know why I did that. I don't know why. But they were yes and no, and they were texting all the time. Like
good cop, bad cop.
I guess. And I was riding high, the thing that was glamorous about the drug dealer boyfriend when I first met him was that he lived in hotels. He would get one room to sleep and play in, another room to like hold his drugs, and dating him would be hotel after hotel, and I thought that was so cool. And so that was my operation.
Sounds terrible. I like consistency.
Yeah. So, there I am in my hotel suite, running, my runners, the people working for me would take care of everything. And I'm just on my throne on the bed, I was smoking meth by that point, by the way. So I'm just sitting there, everything's happening. And I know there's a ticking clock. What's up?
Did the cops let you keep the money, or anything you made you had to like give to them?
Oh yeah, no, there's everything. They took everything. Like I even noted that I don't think the money was the full amount reported. The car, they impounded the car. The car was like, my dad owned gas stations and garages, so it was easier for him to get his kids cars, thankfully. But he was tried. My dad was like a wood board. It was hard for him to be vulnerable. So he spoke through other things. Like his concern with getting the impounded car back was very passionate, which I translated into his concern and care about me.
Right.
That's how that was the best he could do. And I at least knew that then. But the car was impounded. Everything was taken, everything but the clothes on my, my back. And,
sorry. Sidetrack.
No,
so anyway.
but it wasn't easy. It wasn't hard for me to find like my way back up. To get people to front product to build it. Like I knew I was already in the scene enough where I knew how to sell and knew how to do everything and get it back up and that kind of stuff. So by the time I'm feeling like the king of the tweakers, it's like I'm already. I already have all the new product I need, all the new paraphernalia, all that other kind of stuff. But what ended up happening was,
wait. Sorry, I might be a little confused. So when you were king of the tweakers there, was that under the thumb of the police still?
Yeah.
And all that money and drugs that you had at that point, they also had control over?
Oh, I see what you're saying. No.
Okay.
No. I get what you're saying now. So all the agents, the connection I had with the agents was solely on text, and solely at this point with them constantly being like, hey kid, do you want to go to prison? You need to give us something. Me panicking, making something up. Like I have a lead with something, or like, I think there's a drop. I made this up, some drop happening here. And then me saying like, I'm trying, people are paranoid to deal with me. That was the extent of it at that point.
Gotcha.
I'm sure these undercover agents were busy doing other things as well and just kind of moving the needle along with me. I didn't say this before, but since we have the time, when I was interrogated, they read me a list of names, and I was supposed to acknowledge if I knew a certain name or not a certain name, that kind of stuff. And there were a few names I recognized. There were a few names where it was a different first name, different last name. There was my ex drug dealer boyfriend's name was first name but different last name, and then last name but different first name. So I think the agents didn't know what they knew what they had but didn't know what they had, and was looking for more information. All of that led me to believe, like, I think all these motherfuckers are informants.
Could very well be.
I knew, like, there was one, this one guy who did go to jail, was supposedly an informant, but he was the opposite of what you expect from a dealer. He was like a lamb, like just precious. And I just remember how sweet he was. And supposedly he was asked to narc and he didn't. And so he went to jail. And that was the example I had set up for me. So
the rest are informants. This guy is all right.
So I've been sober for 20 years, and the first 10 years of my sobriety, I really thrived on the validation that I got from the story that I'm telling you and that I will continue to tell you.
Oh, thank God. Don't leave me hanging.
Yeah, you'll never know what happened. You got to read the book.
Cliffhanger.
But I think like I needed to get to 20 years because I needed to obviously heal, recover, and develop the language, emotional intelligence, and everything to get to this place where this next part of the story that I could actually hold and really work towards the forgiveness and compassion with myself. Because this next part is why the book even exists, in my opinion.
So it takes a bit of a turn here. This was a...
Oh, no, I'll still keep it entertaining after this part. But
No, but I mean, like, at this point of the story, this is where, like...
Yeah.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah. Because all the consequences are still fucking up my life, not somebody else's.
Right.
And... and I go backwards in time in my book. I start at 19 from the suicide coming out to my mother. And then I go backwards in time, backwards through high school, backwards to realizing I'm gay, backwards to
fetus.
Almost just after being a fetus and being being abandoned and forgotten, and this whole story. That's like the origin story. I did that because I needed to understand that, I felt like a piece of shit. I felt I was worthless, but maybe it was the Mormon part of me. I still felt like I was a nice guy. I felt like I was kind. I felt like I was good. Piece of shit, bad, but like good to other people. Good. Does that make sense? Like,
to me, 100% it makes sense.
Yeah. Not evil. And There were some guys out there that was like, that motherfucker's evil. So, on one of my supply runs, as I'm trafficking through the fucking airports. Side note, by the way, I would just try to play the stupidest white frat boy as I could, because this is post 9/11 and they're all concerned with Middle Eastern men. I just leaned into that. Right. I used the racial profiling to my advantage. And I was introduced to one of Steven's friends that night, and he and I hit it off. He's probably one of the most beautiful men young college boys I've ever seen. He looked like one of the Abercrombie bags. We hit it off. I gave him a bunch of drugs. It was great. He left at one point, and I remember calling him because he gave me his number to see where he was, and he sounded not in a good way. This was after giving him GHB. We think he left and drank alcohol, which if you are in the know, GHB hits the same places as alcohol, but the combination of the two is absolutely lethal. Lethal. So when he came back to us, he started acting like he was what we refer to as falling out. When you have too much GHB, you fall out. It's like passing out from alcohol. That's all we thought it was. We didn't know the alcohol part was involved. So there was the night rolled on, and eventually he OD'd in the back seat, and my brain would not accept this. I can clearly see, all the signs are there, but my mind was paranoid about the cop showing up. My mind was paranoid about consequences. Like, this isn't supposed to happen. So I failed to act too late. And when I finally did, as we were like zooming down the one-way street to the hospital, like, I remembered I even knew CPR, and I jumped back and I tried to do it, but like bile was already coming up. And so it was very unfortunate, classic scenario, dropping him off at the ER and speeding away and stuff. That brought into a whole different frame of reference with this story, because all the consequences were on me at this point. All the consequences, I had to live with. But now this young man who if I wasn't on day 4 of being awake, or paranoid drug dealer, or high as a kite, or more than a kite, high as the freaking Neptune, planet, Jupiter, Saturn, whatever, he could still be with us. And what makes it even more tragic is 2 weeks after this, because my phone number was the last one he called, I get a phone call from his mother.
Be sure to subscribe and to like this video. You can listen on Apple Podcast and Spotify. This is Todd Rennebaum saying, make your beds and take your meds. Keep watching for more interviews with incredible people telling their stories of resilience and adversity with mental health and mental illness.